Hello friends, welcome. In this video, I am going to share my thoughts on how to prepare a worksheet for self-learning in KP astrology, how to adopt a systematic approach to enhance your predictive skills. Here I am talking, about the worksheet or the a systematic method for the predictive skills, not about the basic KP astrology, because the basic KP astrology is not very difficult. It's very systematic, it's organized, and unlike in the traditional, Parashar or Gemini astrology, where there are endless rules, endless yogas, and endless, principles to be followed, and seems like for every, horoscope there is one special rule. So the traditional astrology becomes an endless, uh, a learning exercise. But in KP, the casting of the horoscope and a few basic elements of the Krishnamurti Paddhati, they don't need much time, maybe a couple of months, and you should be able to understand what exactly are the elements of a basic KP astrology. But of course, um, uh, to know that, you have to devote some time in the traditional astrology, so that you know about what planets are, what rashis are, what are the aspects, and all those things. So if you have devoted some time in the traditional astrology and you already know about all these basic stuff about the, like, what these houses are, and the nature of the planets, the aspects, and all those things. And then at one point of time, you might want to graduate and start, delving into KP astrology. Now, in KP astrology, there are a few, basic elements that you will need to learn before, you can get into uh, the the predictive, aspect of the KP astrology. So I'm going to just list a few of the KP astrology elements that you might want to learn, as soon as possible. And uh, some are like how to draw a cusp chart, then um, you have star lord, sub lord, significators. So maybe a couple of I would say two, three, some more. So 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 that is what you need to know about, that if you want to draw a cusp chart, you know, and because in KP astrology, a Bhav Chalit or the cusp chart or the Placidus chart is used. So you might want to know about how this chart is calculated and how the planets are placed in this chart. And in most of my videos, I have always recommended that at the time of practicing all these things, if you do not rely just on the horoscope, but try to do it manually, so that way you can get a very good handle of all these stuff very quickly, and you will have a better clear concept about all this stuff. So let's assume you know how to draw a cusp chart, and then you should be knowing that what the nakshatra is, what the star lord is, what is a sub lord, and then what is meant by the significators, and then the house grouping. By house grouping, it is meant that in KP astrology, an event materializes when a certain group of houses, come together. For example, for marriage, it's not only the seventh house, but the second house and the 11th house are also taken into account to look into all aspects of marriage and the married life. So that's what house grouping is. And there might be a couple of more, some minor points in the KP astrology. So my idea is that from the traditional astrology, when you delve into, or start delving into the KP astrology, learning all these things, might not be very, difficult for you. These are some basic, points, and I would say maybe if you devote like maybe 2 3 hours a day, then maybe 2 months or so should be sufficient for learning all these basic elements or the main elements of KP astrology. And now once you are done with all these things, the question is that how do you, proceed forward? How do you start making predictions, or how do you start analyzing the horoscope? So this is where I wanted to share my thoughts. So now the first thing is that when you you start analyzing a horoscope, then you have to rely on a very good uh, horoscope with very good birth data. So because in Krishnamurti Paddhati, if you get a wrong horoscope, then your prediction and your analysis is all going to be wrong. So so let's say that now you want to uh, start enhancing your predictive skills in KP astrology. So first thing is collect 6 8 or about 10 birth horoscopes of known persons. Okay, family members, friends and relatives. Why I'm saying known persons is because you have to be sure that their birth data is correct, and preferentially if the birth is after 1990 or later, because I don't know, maybe before 1990 or in the 80s or 70s, the family members, the hospital, nursing homes, and all these parents and all these, they were little lousy about noting down the exact time of birth. And in Krishnamurti Paddhati, since the Rashi chart is not given much importance, the Kaspa chart is given important. So and I assume for drawing a Kaspa chart, the exact time of birth is required. KP has some method about fixing the time of birth based on ruling planet and all that, but at this point I would say don't waste time on inaccurate birth data, and don't try to fix or don't waste much time on trying to fix the the ascendant or the birth time of a horoscope. The idea is that gather horoscope where the birth time is already correct, accurate, the chart is correct, because you want to devote more time on enhancing your predictive skills, your analytical skills, rather than wasting time on fixing the birth time. Then the the these kind of birth charts, the reliable birth charts, note down some of the events, education, marriage, childbirth, career, etc. Okay, these are all known events. And now you can also take a celebrity horoscope, because there are many reliable celebrity horoscopes, and where a lot of their personal life events and timings are mentioned. But you have to be very sure about the celebrity horoscope, say birth time. If there is an inaccuracy, then you'll be just wasting your time. So be cautious about it. Though in this example, this example that I have used here, this is one of the celebrity horoscope, but since I know that this is very accurate, and so that's why I've taken this as an example. So now once you have all these data, then now is the time to prepare a chart, which you already know how to do the chart and how to write the tables of planets, cusp, and the significators. So I'm assuming all this you know this by following all these videos and books or one-on-one classroom training, all these things, you can learn about these basic stuff in KP. So I'm assuming that you know all these stuff. And now once you have this chart, prepared, then I would say you might want to have a list of some questions and ready for that particular horoscope that you are going to analyze. Treat this horoscope as a blind chart, though it might belong to one of your relatives, but pretend as if you know nothing about this chart, and you have some basic questions about this particular chart. And now some of the questions, standard question. This is not only about a blind chart or the chart of the relative. If some person approaches you and he or she wants to get the horoscope done for his or her child, then also you might want to follow this approach. So now, what are the questions? The basic questions a person has in life. Obviously, the first is about the wealth and the money and things like that. But from your point of view, when you are analyzing a chart, the the simple question that whether this person is going to be rich in life, you see how many shades it takes. Whether this person is already born with a silver spoon in his mouth, whether it's already rich, whether this person is going to remain rich throughout the life and then die as a rich person, right? So because a person's life can take so many shades, and you are in your life as a professional astrologer, you will run into all kind of horoscope with all kinds of shades of gray. So when you are analyzing a chart for your education to enhance your predictive skills, you might want to write as many questions as possible for your own study. So here is the chart, and your question is whether this person is born rich or poor, or about the the material prosperity from different shades. Then other standard question is of course about the education, and but for you it might take many shades. Whether it's going to do a PhD, whether it's going to be a research scholar, and or whether he's going to become a leading scientist, those kind of stuff. So those are all detail stuff, but this is a basic question about the education. We know that in a horoscope, if you have a lot many combinations of 4 9 11, then the person is bound to have very good education. Then the question is about the travel, then about the property, married life, and then business or service, health, accident, misfortunes. Might have missed out a couple of childbirth. I guess I missed out on childbirth or the the span of life. So these are some of the basic questions. So now you have the horoscope of your relative and friends, and you already have some information about various events in his or her life, and with some events might have the information about the date also. So so with this kind of data in your hand, and first you have to prepare the list of the questions, then the grouping of the houses, you might want to have some list handy, and if you make a search on the internet, you will find all these grouping of houses according to Krishnamurti Paddhati, so that you can write at some in a diary or somewhere, and that can use as a handy note for you. Now then you have to write the about the character sketch. I have to do one video on how to assess the character sketch of a person, but in your worksheet, when you are analyzing this horoscope, this is your personal worksheet. This is not the worksheet that you are going to give it to the client. This is your worksheet. Then you might want to write a short note about the character sketch, and then about the general. And in the general, then you have to look at these questions. And when you are generally looking at the horoscope of a person from the KP point of view, then more the planets indicate a certain kind of a grouping, the more it's likely that the person is going to go through that particular result. For example, in the general, if you write about, let's say, the material, prosperity, prosperity. Okay, so what do you do is that that 2, 6, 10, and 11, these houses are good for material prosperity. So now if you look at the significators, and if you find that majority of the planets they are connected with 2, 6, 10, 11, then you can just write a small comment that this person would be well off in life. Okay, that's your personal comment for you to analyze. That similarly, for education, if you see a lot of combination of this 4, 9, 11, then you can say that this person is going to be very well educated, or he can become a scientist, or he can go into some research, those kind of things. Similarly, if you look at 3, 9, 12, and if you look at too much of 3, 9, 12, then you can say this person is going to travel a lot. He might even become a sales representative, traveling always, all the time. So this is a general, just the general stuff that is based on the grouping of the houses and the significators. Okay. Now here, I want to draw your attention to one thing. In Krishnamurti Paddhati, the the cuspal sublord, plays a very important role. And for example, if you have to look at the marriage, then the rule is to look at the cuspal sublord. If the cuspal sublord, promises marriage, then only you predict about the marriage. Otherwise, just ignore it. But the in one of the videos, I think I have pointed out that to get this a very accurate cusp chart with all these very accurate cuspal sublord is a very challenging scenario. And this is what you learn when you create a worksheet for self learning, and you create the horoscope of your relative, and then you find that the sublord of the ascendant is showing infant mortality, and according to KP, this person might have been dead at the age of what, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, but this relative, friend, or whatever, is still alive at the age of 80. At that time, then you have to sit up and think about the whether the cuspal sublord is accurate or inaccurate. And this is where then you will be scratching your head about the time of birth. So usually in a birth horoscope, personally, I tend to overlook the cuspal sublord and just focus more on the planets and star lord and sublord. So so that is one of the point I wanted to draw your attention to. But like I said, it's your privilege, and you can go forward on this in whatever manner you want to. If you want to use the sublord, a cuspal sublord, well, you might want to look from that point of view. So anyway, so we have the character sketch, then we have the general node that we have already created. So until this point, the 3 points. What are the 3 points? One is that you already know how to create a chart according to KP, and you know the what the significators are, then the grouping of the houses. Was the second point. Third point was that you can generally see what uh, the pattern is in the horoscope in terms of material prosperity, education, travel, marriage, and all those things. Until this point, you shouldn't have much problem. But the moment when you come to actually timing the event, then you will run into all kind of issues. So I have, what I usually do is that I create a chart in this tabular format, and this is the dasha, you know the dasha and the bhukti period from this date to this date. I don't prefer writing dates like this, because sometimes it creates confusion. So Rahu Dasha, Rahu Bhukti from 15 January 2010 to whatever date. And now, what are the questions usually applicable in a birth horoscope, or a person is likely going to ask? It's about the health, then wealth, marriage, married life, children, education, property, real estate, and accident, and all that, right? So you can tabulate all these questions. You might want to add some more questions, so your preference. And here you might want to write the combination of houses. For example, for health, 1 5 11 is good, and 1 6 8 12 is bad. So similarly, for wealth, for marriage, you can write these kind of combinations. And the planet's nature also sometimes plays a role. So as a handy a note, or a, I would say, as an offhand reference, you can write these points over here, right at the header itself. So it's all up to you and up to your convenience. And then now, if you find that Rahu period, now if you look at the horoscope of this person, which I assume is a celebrity's horoscope or someone known to you, and you assume that in Rahu period something should happen related to whatever, wealth or something, you can put a note. For example, if you think that a childbirth might happen, okay, then you can put a note over here, something like right, child birth. Okay, and now if this prediction proves correct, then you can put a note over here that this particular prediction or analysis that was made by you might not have shared this information with the the person of this chart, but at least it was there in your diary. And so you can put a note whether this particular analysis stood the test of time or it failed. So and similarly you can do for other Dasha Bhukti period, Rahu, then you have Rahu, Jupiter. So this way what happens is that if nothing is going to happen, for example, if this period is neutral and nothing is going to happen to marriage or married life, just leave it blank. So you might want to just flag the important event that you think might materialize in a particular period, based on whatever you have learned, yeah, using Krishnamurti Paddhati. And then you can some of the events you already know, when you were preparing the chart of a particular relative. You might know the date of marriage, like I mentioned, that if you know some events, that's always good. That way what happens is that that the marriage of this person happened on so and so date. So in your worksheet, you can see if that particular period actually matches with whatever your analysis was, and you can make a note whether that thing came out correct or incorrect according to your analysis. So why I'm saying all this is because timing of event is still the toughest part in Krishnamurti Paddhati. So this is still a very challenging, and you have to hone your skills. You have to look into reliable horoscopes. You have to invest time in your research, and that is the only way to sharpen, your predictive skills. I mean, you see a lot of videos, you read a lot of books. If you go through Krishnamurti's books, Krishnamurti is not going to uh, produce a book, where he discusses about his, failed predictions or inaccurate, horoscopes. So all the horoscopes in any astrology books are only those horoscopes where the predictions have proved correct. But using that particular method, if you think that you can immediately, draw a conclusion and make very accurate and stunning, predictions, especially, where the timing is involved, then you might come in for a surprise. So, and when you start, preparing this kind of a worksheet and prepare your notes, then you will see that what I'm trying to, explain over here. I've gone through every single, Krishnamurti books many times, and I will show you that even, what kind of uh, um, roadblocks or drawbacks are there in perfecting the event timing, technique. In some other video, I'll discuss it. So you have to, evolve your own method. That's why the the calculative part of KP astrology is science, where you draw a horoscope, you draw a list of significators and things like that. But the event timing part is still, an art that you have to develop. So, so that is what, was the subject of this video, and that is what I wanted to discuss with you. Now, one more example, when you have the chart of a person where the events are already known, and especially if it's a celebrity horoscope, so that can also help you a lot, in your self-learning, path. For example, this the example horoscope that I have shown here is Donald Trump's, birth chart. He's already he won the presidential election and is going to be the president of USA in January 2017. And if you make a search on the web for his chart, you will get a real accurate, birth chart, and it has a lot of, uh, um, events with date, the things that happened, in his life. For example, some of the events, I have already noted down, and he filed for as many as three or four, bankruptcies. So what's happening is you are looking at a person chart who was born rich, is rich, and is likely to remain, rich. He's a billionaire, but at the same time, he filed for three or four bankruptcies. Then he has had as many as three marriages and two divorces. So you already have five pieces of data: three marriage date and two divorce date. And then he has, I guess, what, three children. So another, three piece of data. Then he is going to become the president of the US. So then you might want to look at the Raj Yog angle in his horoscope. So this is how, you have to do what is called as a postmortem, and this is what is going to enhance, your predictive skills. So that is all, in this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.